Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for November 14th, 2023. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is a webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
Sorry, did we lose you there for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. We're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll share them with Gayle. We're going to start by recapping last week's Weekly Tittle, which was called Minding the Store. The assignment was to evaluate the status of an item or collection that you're keeping in storage. We'd love to hear from our participants who are live in Zoom and on Facebook, who reconsidered the decision to keep deferring a decision this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer JDS857 shared a very thoughtful and longish comment on the issue of storage. JDS writes, "I've never had a storage unit, but we got into the habit of storing things in our spare rooms, basement, and garage. My husband isn't particularly tidy and tends to hold on to sentimental items and board games. I've held on to items thinking we might use them one day for future grandchildren, for when the house has been renovated and we have space, or for when we could sell them. The clutter has now encroached into our living space and has filled every spare corner, every wardrobe, under beds, etc. I make sure to keep the functional parts of the house clean and clear, bathroom, bedroom, or bathroom, kitchen, bed, maid, lounge, etc. But everywhere else you look, there's clutter, so it's not restful. What I've found is that all my assumptions about these items have been, for the most part, incorrect. They deteriorate while sitting for years no matter what. They look outdated. They get dirty and damaged by insects. They fade. I don't have time or energy to sell them. What I usually end up doing is putting in a lot of effort to clean them up and then donate for free. So I've effectively paid money, stored the item for years, spent time cleaning it, then transported it to donate to someone else for free. Or if it was in too bad condition, I throw it out. There have been a few items I've sold, but for effort involved, it rarely feels worth it. So I have learned storing items for the future is a zero-sum game and a big waste of time, valuable living space, and effort. In future, I'm going to try hard to part with items as soon as I feel they are no longer useful, instead of holding on to them for years."
I love this discussion that she has given us because it covers all types of deep storage. She was really talking about deep storage in her house and not just about storage units, but it addresses the idea that some of the reasons for long-term storage just don't pan out and are really an illusion. The reasons to keep things in deep storage are often just stalling the inevitable, and they're not a real reason to store an item for a long time. So thank you for sharing this personal story about how you came to that conclusion yourself. And I think it's very valuable for everybody to hear that. It's like, yeah, 20 years later, for those future grandkids, like, when the future grandkids actually exist and are present, then you can buy stuff for them. You don't have to store things for them for 20 years. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Tammy reports, "I got rid of a big bag of barcodes on packages I was keeping in case I need to return stuff. It felt good to trash it."
Yay. Good for you, Tammy. I'm sure it was a lot of cleared space that you hadn't seen for a while. So woohoo.
Paul says, "Visited a friend last week. She inherited some collectibles from her parents. A relative told her those are worth a lot of money. You can sell them on eBay. 10 years later, we took the entire collection to a thrift store. Now there's room in the closet where the boxes used to be. Lesson learned. If you don't actively sell online now, you won't when you inherit items. Get rid of them ASAP."
Such a good point. Oh my God, that's such a good point, because it's a whole thing you got to learn how to do. And if you're not already into it and it's not a really part of your lifestyle that you go online and throw things up for sale, then suddenly becoming an expert at it and finding the time to do it and the willingness to do it. And like, oh yeah, you're going to sell them on eBay, but you're not. That's like it's such a good point. Thank you for making it. Because yeah, we all think we're going to become merchants online. And the possibility is, it is possible that we could, but the truth is if you're not already doing it, you're not suddenly going to become super interested or expert at it. And so the idea that this is going to be your way out of the stuff that you are saving is that you're going to now become a store online or find out a way to sell them all online. Yeah, it's a big stretch. It's a big ask of yourself. And I think it's more reasonable to say, yeah, I'm not already doing this, so it's not probably going to be part of my life.
And sometimes well-meaning friends or relations will tell you the story of the thing that someone found and sold online for a ton of money.
For a gazillion dollars.
And what they don't tell you is, yeah, that same person also found 49 other things that they tried to sell online, and they put 16 hours into making all the listings, and they netted $29.80.
Out of all of them, right? Yeah, I think that the one thing that makes $1 million when you put it online is the unicorn. It's not the norm.
Yeah, it's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, 100%.
Jane in California says, last week I went through a container of gifts that I've never used, new and like new. I took several to the local gift and thrift shop. Now someone else can find them and maybe gift them to someone who will use them and enjoy them.
That's great. And you don't have to keep them in the closet anymore. Good job. Yay.
Connie says, I donated all the felt material I was saving for a project. Same with textiles. I hope someone puts it all to good use.
Right. And someone will be like, oh my God, look at all this great felt. Some artist will find it and think it's the bomb. So good for you.
Naomi says, and I'm not sure if this was in reference to a specific thing we already talked about. She says, 1, its value will never be higher than it is today. 2, do not forgo any opportunity to be generous. That's probably just about, giving away the good stuff in general.
Right. Like how lovely, what a great way to put it, that, you can take the opportunity to be generous with something that has value and put it out there and let other people have access to it. And you don't make a bunch of money off of it, but somebody else gets something that they wouldn't be able to have otherwise. And what a great way to think about it, that you're just being super generous. And don't miss the opportunity, because then you can feel good about yourself and you're putting that kind of energy out in the world. And that's a good thing.
And yeah, sure. The billionaires who run eBay will not get their cut, but they'll probably manage somehow.
But we don't care really.
Diane says, I got rid of some donations this weekend. Also, we had a piece of furniture in the garage that we didn't want. Decided the garbage guys could have it.
There you go. And off it went, right? Good job.
CJ says, yeah, don't know why I'm storing for my future grandkids when I don't even have human kids and my fur babies are all neutered.
I'm pretty sure that pipeline is now shut down. As you describe it, I'm guessing, yeah, that's funny.
Susie says, when I moved to my parents' house, I brought a lot of things with me. I had plastic boxes in the backyard to keep the items I wanted to keep. Over the years, the boxes started to leak or break, and I ended up throwing away things I had never used. It would have been better to give the items away to someone who would have used them.
In the moment, right? And we all have ambitions that their circumstances create a reason that you have to move, that maybe you didn't plan. And you pack up all your stuff because you don't have time to deal with it all in the moment, and you get it all over to the new place, and then it doesn't fit. And so she's storing stuff in plastic bins outside, right? So that's just accelerating the death because it's out in the elements. And then you go on about your life and you don't have time to go back and try to merge it into the house, or truly maybe there wasn't enough room for all the stuff. And so there was a moment where either right after you moved or right before you moved that you could have jettisoned a whole bunch of stuff knowing that it wouldn't all fit, and you sort of missed that window, and then you settled into your new life and it was all out of sight, out of mind, like it was all stored in deep storage and you didn't have to look at it, right? And so that puts you in a position to sort of forget about it and go on about your life, and then you circle back and realize, yeah, except that stuff is all dying out here. And so you did kind of miss a window. And I'm sorry that you had to throw stuff away, and too bad. And it's a perfect example of, you had good intentions and you had a timeline and you had a destination house that couldn't absorb two whole people's house worth of stuff. Like they had stuff to begin with and you had your stuff and it wouldn't all fit into the new space. And you sort of stalled that by putting it all out in the backyard in bins. And so there you go. And then you got, and then they sat out there and died. Another reason, like you put it in long-term storage and it wasn't a reason that really panned out in the end.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
We better get on with our main topic because we have a lot to cover. A lot. Our recent surveys included a question inviting our audience to offer your favorite Clutter Fairy-ism, decluttering or organizing aphorism, or helpful mnemonic device. We collected a lot of great answers, and today we're going to present a primer of beloved Gayle-isms and a lot of other useful phrases that can help us keep focus in our organizing and decluttering work. Before we start sharing the list, however, I'd like to say a word about sources. As far as we know, neither Gayle nor I invented or were the first to use any of the words, phrases, or sayings on this list. Wherever we know the source of the expressions, we'll cite them. And we encourage anyone watching us live to share a source if you know one that we've omitted or overlooked. If you're watching this later on YouTube, feel free to give credit to sources in comments on the video, in our show notes, or on Facebook. Now let's get on with the list.
Thank you to everybody for sharing their favorites. We got so many, and several of you suggested the same thing. So more than one of you would add it into the list as an answer. So unless it's noted some other way, we attribute the ism to the first viewer or listener that suggested it in our list. But we recognize that more than one of you suggested it, and we didn't want to try to give everybody credit. So the first person that thought about it, they get the credit today. Okay, so we're going to run through a list here and talk about them. The first one on my list is eating an elephant. This is this is an excellent one. This phrase refers to a riddle, and the question is, what's the best way to eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time. And it's a shorthand way to acknowledge that even the biggest, scariest, loudest, most overwhelming organizing project can be accomplished if you take it in small bites. Short work sessions that accumulate into really big progress with patience and persistence over time. So we do talk about eating the elephant a lot, and one bite at a time, one box at a time, one drawer at a time. It absolutely translates, the metaphor translates into decluttering environment. So that's a really good one. The next one is, kitchen related, peeling the onion. There is nothing fast about peeling onions, as the non-kitchen person says. Trying to get those outer layers off is so annoying. I just, grumble the whole time I'm trying to cut an onion, peel an onion. It takes time, and it's a perfect metaphor to describe tackling a complex organizing project. You have to start with the outermost layer, and it's most practical to peel off the whole layer before you start on the next layer. And decluttering can be exactly like that. You go in and peel the stuff off the top, come back and do another round. And it takes peeling over and over and over again to get all the way through the project. And so I think peeling an onion is a great metaphor for the way that we tackle an organizing project. Next on the list is, I think this one may be one that we thought up ourselves, that Ed may have thought up.
This may actually be somewhat original to us.
Right?
The phrase, yeah.
The phrase, bigger buckets. So Sarah J suggested this one, and bigger buckets is our shorthand for the idea that you can organize effectively without organizing everything down to the nth level of detail. And we use this in the context of paper most often. If you find it overwhelming to sort all your books into genres and subgenres and alphabetize them by author, you could try using just the categories of fiction and nonfiction. That's an extreme example, but the idea is to organize just enough so that you'll be able to retrieve what you need when you need it without a struggle, and not so thoroughly organized that your system becomes ungainly and too complicated to maintain. It's super easy to put a book back into a fiction slot or a nonfiction slot. It's a fast choice, A or B, and you're done. And the more complicated and elaborate the system, the more time you have to stop and go, okay, where does this go? Why is that important? And we use this to great effect in all of our conversations about filing paper, storing paper, so that you don't end up with a million alphabetized files and each of the files has 1 or 2 pieces of paper in it, because you've made a file folder for each individual piece. That we can make some bigger buckets about car, and everything related to the car can be in one file. And then if you have to go find something within it, we use that one a lot. And I think the concept is useful in terms of managing, reminding you not to overcomplicate.
I'll take the next section. This was we have a whole collection of acronyms and initialisms. We'll start with acronyms. It's an acronym if the series of initials spells an actual word. If it's just a new word made up of the initials of some other words, that's an initialism. So the one that was mentioned the most often, this was actually an example we gave, was Ohio. Only handle it once.
Yeah, and I've heard that one a million times around. It's a tried and true one.
I feel as if someone may have cited a source when it came up in a previous episode, but I could not find it. So I don't know if I don't think this originated with an organizer particularly. This has probably been around a long time.
Right.
Doom, don't organize, only move.
I love that the word doom is descriptive of what it feels like when you don't organize something, but you only move stuff around. It helps explain the result of just moving stuff from one surface or one room to another. Doom descends on you in all of its forms, like sadness and frustration and anger and being overwhelmed. So I just think that one in particular, the word that it spells goes with the action that it's describing. And it's a good one.
Well, and at least one person also mentioned a doom box, and a doom box is specifically when you're in the process of moving and you just start throwing stuff in a box, figuring I'll sort this
deal
all
with
out
that later.
On the other end. That's a
Right.
doom box.
There you go.
Ginger offered the suggestion of picnic, and this acronym is conventionally used to mean problem in chair, not in computer. But I think we could just as easily let the second C stand for clutter, problem in chair, not in clutter, and use this phrase to remind us that our stuff is neither good nor bad. Whether or not something is clutter, whether or not something deserves space in our homes, is all about our relationship with the stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Chaos, can't have anyone over syndrome. Dee suggested this one, which is borrowed from the Fly Lady.
This one makes me laugh. I think it's funny and true at the same time. That you can't have anyone over syndrome that's a great one.
PJ suggested cute. Can't use that ever.
That's a good one, PJ. I like it.
Like the fabulous, shiny, sparkly pair of shoes that are incredibly uncomfortable.
Yes, that you could never actually walk in. Yeah.
Space, sort, purge, assign a home, containerize, evaluate periodically. This one comes from Julie Morgenstern. That's
a tried and true version from an industry pioneer. This has been out for a long time from her book, and we all use some version of this. And it's important that the E, evaluate periodically, is the maintenance process that she's even baked in, doing the maintenance as part of the process. So It's a good one.
Yeah, maintain wouldn't have worked as well.
Right?
Spackum doesn't really spell anything. Kathy suggested UFO, unfinished object.
I didn't coin this, but I've been saying it forever. It's the perfect in the crafting world, and every crafter knows exactly what I'm saying when I say, you got a bunch of UFOs we got to store. I absolutely know what that means.
Yes, I'm going to tell a story about my UFOs later.
Okay.
Um, 40, fear of running out. This one was from Diana. And it's a variation on the popular initialism FOMO, fear of missing out. So I guess fear of running out is the thing that keeps your 28 rolls of toilet paper restocked.
And in the pantry that has 17 cans of green beans in it. Yeah.
Right. Jean suggested ATAD. I guess you could pronounce it ATAD, a thing a day.
A thing a day.
As a decluttering principle. An anonymous user suggested YOLO, you only live once, which in this particular context applied to decluttering means you don't need to keep enough stuff for several lifetimes.
I thought that was brilliant. Like, oh my gosh, you only live once, therefore you don't need stock for 17 lives. Great analogy. I really liked that one.
And then Aunt Juju suggested GETMO, GETMO, meaning good enough to move on.
Which is hard for people. So getting to the place of good enough to move on, that's reminding you that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be good enough. Well,
I was also reading that as possibly meaning the thing is still a little useful. The thing is still a little appealing.
Right.
And so
you can go move on to the next person.
I'm setting it free.
There you go. Right.
Sending it down the river.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. Oh, how funny. So the next one on the list, we're out of the initialisms now. We're back to the sayings. The first one is ask before tossing. Sarah put this out and she suggested this. And I think that's really important instructions about respecting somebody's belongings. You really have to ask. And I make clients laugh sometimes because I will pick up something that is clearly a piece of trash. And I will say, is it okay for me to throw this out? And I do that because 25% of the time when I think it's trash and I think it's going out, they say to me, oh my God, I've been looking for that. Or no, I need that number. Or, oh, like it isn't trash. It's there for a reason. And I just don't know what the reason is. I can't see the reason, but there is a reason to ask before you throw out anything, no matter how obvious you think it is that it's trash. And that's just showing respect for the person and letting them tell you, yes, I agree with you. It really is trash, or no, you just don't know. You just are uninformed. It really is not trash. And so it's important to ask. Pam and several people suggested one in, one out. And that's a instruction that's been around for a long time, trying to help you maintain the balance. If you go shopping and you bring something in, you got to let something go out for the volume in the house to stay the same. And we all generally fail at that. I think that's one thing that we don't do very often. And so it's important to try to incorporate that into your home management.
Well, a couple of different people said that since they have determined that they're above capacity, they've actually established a 1 in 2 out, or even a 1 in 4 out. I apologize that I didn't make a note of who said they were trying to take down their volume dramatically, and
like up the ante, right?
Yeah.
By making that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And use it as a trigger, right? Like when something comes in, it gives you a moment, you have an opportunity. I'm putting something new in the closet. I should stop long enough and take out a few things on it while I'm standing here, while I'm thinking about it. And so it's a way to prompt you as well to make a few decisions in the moment as you're walking through your life and get some things out of there. Kathy said she picked up my comment of good for you because I say good for you all the time. She noted that we always make a point of acknowledging and celebrating the accomplishments that our viewers and listeners share with us. And it is so important to be supportive for anyone who's doing some work. So often we're alone and we're struggling in a vacuum with only our own thoughts. And we know that we can't rely on that stream of consciousness. Our thoughts are always giving us trouble. So I love offering a cheer for anybody who's trying to make changes and improve their own spaces. Thank you for acknowledging it. It is part of what I do, is to be your cheerleader. C suggested, when in doubt, toss it out. And I am uncertain about that one. Like, I get it. If you are having trouble making a decision, then that's really sort of reflecting that it's not as important to you as you think. When you're like, do I want it? Do I not want it? When you have to think about it that hard, it's probably something that can go. And I would just add the caveat that if you're one of those people who deals with stress by throwing everything out, then you probably shouldn't use this one. You should find other ones to be inspirational for you, because if your default is to throw it out without thinking, then you'll inevitably throw out something that you're sorry that you got rid of later. So just a side note for that one. So here's one that I use all the time. Rowan and several other people suggested this one: representative sample. A representative sample is a reminder that you don't have to get rid of all of it, just keep a smaller amount, which will be the best of it. And for me, this is the perfect way to describe a smaller collection that shows the interest and the specialness of a larger collection. It honors the theme of the collection and distills it into a manageable quantity. And usually when you pull the representative sample, you're pulling the cream of the crop, right? You're pulling all of the best pieces. And so you're taking the quality out of the quantity and ending up with a big row of quality, which is the best part. And so you don't miss the quantity as much because you keep the really good pieces and let the rest go. Thanks for sharing that one. Kathy liked release it back into the wild. I'm always trying to come up with positive, less stressful ways of thinking about letting things go. For some who struggle with letting go of excess things, giving something away feels really negative. And this is one version of trying to think about it as a positive outcome and an important result, instead of just seeing it as a loss of something. If you're releasing it back into the wild, that sort of implies that it needs to be in the wild and it doesn't need to be with you. And it's a good thing that you're sending it back into the wild. So it's just me trying to be positive. M suggested, in the same vein, send it down the river of stuff. Isn't it helpful to think about your stuff as floating away from you to the next person? It's another visual that I find useful. It's a useful expression of what I mean about being positive about letting it go from you. It doesn't have to be a negative thought. You can just be floating it on down the river to the next person. This is a funny one. The hula hoop method. Lisa Beth suggested this, and I thought, what a great idea. The hula hoop method it's an idea about how to tell you how much to do. So you want to look at an area that's the size of a hula hoop to tackle in one day. And so that creates an artificial size constraint, like do the tabletop or do a drawer or do a shelf on a closet. If you're in a room that doesn't have a surface that makes that work, you can think about, okay, here's a hula hoop and it's this big around. I can't make my hands appear on camera and show you that. But if you think of the size of a hula hoop and you stay within that size, it gives you a way to focus and narrow what you're going to work on for the day. And I thought that was a clever way. Everybody knows what a hula hoop size is, and it's an easy reference point to keep you focused down.
I look for a source for that one, and the first result I found was from the San Francisco Bay Area Center for Cognitive Therapy.
Oh, really?
In an article on decluttering tips. I don't.
Cool.
They did not cite any sources, so I don't know whether that was picked up from somewhere else,
but they thought of it, and it's a great idea to focus, right? To keep you focused in a small area.
Yeah.
C suggested, don't leave a room empty-handed. And I talk about this a lot, actually. It's really good advice. When you have to get up anyway, you might as well take something with you on the trip. Going up and down the stairs, take something with you. Going from the den where you're watching TV into the kitchen, take something with you on the trip. If you're going to get up anyway, don't go empty-handed. Use that 5 minutes to make something happen. KY You don't mean Kentucky there. You mean KY.
KY is how they gave their name. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
yeah.
KY has two of them. Donate what someone can use, which is a good one, and embrace negative space. I particularly like embracing negative space. It's the idea that, you can, if there's negative space and it's not full of something, that means that the things that are there are much more easily seen. So access usable, that's the important part. So embracing negative space means that you're giving some room for the things that you are keeping so that you can see them and find them. Christine suggested floors first. I do talk about that a lot. You got to walk and stand in order to work on a place. So clearing the floors goes a long way to clearing the workspace and restoring access to things that have likely been blocked for a long time. This is particularly true in closets when you walk up to the door and you can't get in because there's stuff all the way up to the door. Clearing out the floor means that you can then walk into the closet and work on the stuff that was back behind the things that were stacked up to the door. But you can't even think about what's on those hanging on the rods or up on the shelves in the closet if you can't walk into the closet at all. So it's important to clear the floors first. Viv suggests, don't put it down, put it away. Love that. I haven't ever thought about that way. So, but it's true. Some people are distracted they pick it up, they use it, and then they don't think about it in the moment. They just let go of it and it just lands on a counter somewhere. And if you can pause for the minute and say, okay, I'm done with the screwdriver. Now I'm going to go put the screwdriver away before I continue. That allows you to, get there. Christine references me saying, this isn't who you are anymore. And she says, I'm not sure what the ism is, but the idea that you're onto another phase of life. So the stuff from your previous phases of life and previous hobbies and interests need to be let go. I am really partial to this way of saying that you don't need to hold on to tons of stuff from previous phases of your life. And also, it's me trying to be positive about who you are now is who you are now, and is what is most important. So who you were and who you aren't anymore, it isn't that it's bad or wrong. It's just that that's not at the top of the list right now. And so letting go things that go with that, it's time to do it. And it's a good time to do it.
This is the one that was a game changer for me when we were working on evaluating the house that I wanted to get out of after living in it for 16 years. You said this, I've told the story numerous times in previous, so I won't tell the whole story, but in reference to an item I was keeping for sentimental reasons, you said, I don't think this is who you are anymore. And that kept echoing in my head over the following days and weeks. And I came to realize a whole lot of this stuff isn't who I am anymore. And
right.
I don't have to keep it.
And I think that you applied that in the office area as well. There was a lot about the office, that the way that you stored stuff in the office, the way that you had created files and had support materials. And it was a point where you let go of a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah.
This Rowan made this one. The garage is where things go to die. So it is one of my favorites. And she says, not Gayle saying, but it is my favorite from the English translation of Goodbye Things by Fumio Sasaki. I didn't realize it was something said in the book. I hadn't read this book personally, but for me, this was something that I spontaneously said. I think what Mr. Sasaki said is so true, and it's so universal in nature. Like, the garage is where things go to die, and everyone can understand that immediately. Like, it makes perfect sense to everyone.
Yeah.
New Mexico Mama says low-hanging fruit. She picked up my comment about low-hanging fruit. And again, this is a visually descriptive thought that everybody can relate to, grabbing the fruit that's easily reached in a tree. So it's so easy to translate that to doing the decluttering chores that are easiest to get started, or releasing the stuff that is easy decisions to make first in order to reduce the volume quickly up front. So that one translates to decluttering really, really well.
It's a great way to get started. Now, of course, you've only got low-hanging fruit at the beginning of the project.
Right. Yeah. But and usually it's some volume.
Eventually you have to get out the ladder to take the metaphor further. You
got to start making the hard decisions. But yeah, it's absolutely about getting the stuff that's easy done out of the way and on out of your space quickly. This one's for you, Ed.
Everything counts.
Yes, yes.
And I really started saying that to myself as a mantra on the subject of exercise back in around 2004, when I decided that I needed to exercise every day for the rest of my life. I decided that in order to satisfy that, I was going to have to be a little easy on myself. And so on a day when it's pouring rain and your foot hurts and somebody called and yelled at you on the phone, walking down to the end of the block and back counts.
Mm-hmm. And you did it when even when you had your eye treatment.
Oh yeah.
When something went wrong. Well, I can't remember. You had a detached retina or something.
Yeah.
And they put the little bubble in there and he was supposed to lay on his right side
yeah.
for, 22 hours a day or something.
Well, they said you can take a 10-minute break every 2 hours or so. I don't remember exactly.
Something, right?
Yeah.
And so during that 10-minute break, he would get up and once a day he would go outside and walk down to the end of the street and back. And it was like a half a block or something, right. But he still managed to get his half a block walk in because everything counted. And he was exercising even though he had a bubble in his eyeball. So, and the truth is, in the decluttering context, this is important because you can't be judging yourself about, I didn't get enough done today. I should have done more. It's not happening fast enough, whatever. Everything counts. And we try to remind everybody that on the regular, because there's going to be days when you can do more and do less, and it all still has to be done. So, right? Like, it's not worth stressing about. Everything counts. If you got something done, you got something done, and you should be cheering. One of my favorites, shop your own store. And the converse, instead of storing everything you might ever need, leave it at the store and go get it when you actually need it. Mim suggested that. Most people don't think of their belongings as their own store, but especially when you own a large volume of stuff, it's a really apt description. When you own way more than you can actively be using currently, the rest of the items are your own store, and you should be shopping there. Tetris organizing. I'm not sure how to say Lenny.
I think Lene.
Lene.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
So Tetris organizing. I think almost everybody understands what the game Tetris is. The goal of the game is to take all the various block shapes and to fill a line completely so there's no gaps. And you win when all the blocks are interlocked in unbroken lines. And I use that logic to describe what happens when someone tries to maximize a storage space by stuffing it as full as possible. It all gets locked in there and it's impossible to access it or move it. And the visual of moving all those blocks around to fill up the lines is a perfect metaphor for that organizing situation that, you sort of get into and then get trapped by. Tammy made reference to set it free. Another positive view of releasing things to replace feeling negative about letting things go. We keep trying to come up with versions of that so you guys can feel okay about it.
Okay, I need to give you a break and make an announcement.
Okay.
And that is, we want to say a special thank you to Diana for becoming our newest Patreon supporter. If you would like to help support our efforts with a recurring monthly donation of any size, please visit cfhou.com/Patreon. Your contributions help us offset the costs of producing the weekly webcast and help us fund new projects that we have in the works. Thank you for your support, Diana, and all our generous underwriters.
We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
I also want to tell a story of my own that is going to become relevant when we get to the tittle.
Okay.
Okay. Something I did this week, and I think it will be interesting to our audience. So we rearranged the living room a few weeks ago. That's why you're getting a blurred background instead of the background you were used to seeing on the other side of the room. And when we rearranged the living room, there wasn't space because we were adding a TV. There wasn't space for all my drawing stuff in the way I'd had it arranged before. And so Jaime put it in a couple of different places, and it sort of hampered my ability to do what I want to do. I didn't, it didn't holler at me this doesn't work. It just was a little different, a little unfamiliar. So last week I said, hey, could you give me a hand? I would like to move some stuff around. So I took out things that didn't need to be there. Really, I ended up clearing everything out and then put all my writing stuff back together. Drawing, all the most essential drawing stuff is now grouped together close at hand. Nothing is so far away that I can't lean to reach it.
Right.
And the result was a new surge of creativity. This weekend, I thought about a project that had been on the to-do list forever, which was inventory all the projects I've started, all my UFOs, and figure out, to make a list for myself so I can go back and revisit them. I found 35 unfinished projects.
Oh my gosh, that's such a big list of creative projects.
Wait, actually, I take that back. 35 pet portraits specifically. There were also a few
Oh,
other drawings that I haven't finished, but
right.
35 pet portraits. So that then I circled after I did that, I circled back and I finished 3 pieces.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so we're going to talk some more about that when we get to the tittle, but I wanted to tell that story now and make sure we didn't run out of time because we still have a lot of things on our list.
I know, right? Thank you for sharing. So the next one on the list is an anonymous watcher suggested marinate. And this, I talk about marinating things for marinating boxes, marinating files. This one works for me because it describes leaving something to steep for a long period of time. Just like a cook who puts a piece of meat to marinate in a sauce in the fridge for some stretch of time. And the end result is a change in the meat, a flavor added, and generally it becomes better tasting. It makes sense to me to think of papers in file cabinets and boxes stored there for years sometimes as having been marinating and getting mellow and less important, less time sensitive, less actionable, all of which makes the job of letting it go so much easier to do, which is
and
why it was a good metaphor.
and more ready to throw on the fire.
There you go. I can always count on you to stretch the metaphor a little farther. That's awesome. Another one of my favorites is scramble eyes. And I think that one is definitely a Gayle-ism. It's 100% made up by me. And you got to cover this one. I pulled scramble eyes out of the air, and I usually use it to say that we need to de-scramble-ize an area. In my mind, I think of this as when a room looks like someone stirred the contents with a stick to mix it all up, like scrambling an egg. The contents are scramblized and they need to be de-scramblized. That's how I see it in my head when I'm using that term. Another Pearl suggested start by clearing a path. Anything that helps you walk into a space and work on it can only be helpful. It's a fancier version of clearing the floor first.
Okay, I've got one I want to share. And this one is not so much a specific saying as a commentary on how Gayle communicates. I really like this, and so I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Alexis said, "What is significant about Gayle's communication is that it is thoughtfully structured and delivered to your community with compassion and specifically geared to the individual seeking assistance. Gayle's ability to really listen and carefully respond allows the person to absorb what makes movement forward possible. This is a special kind of talent that allows for the autonomy of the other person. Thank you."
This is such a kind comment. Thank you so much for sharing, Alexis. You noted that we're trying to allow your autonomy over your own things, and this is exactly what we want for you all. Instead of feeling owned by your things or disturbed or overwhelmed or unable to manage your own environment, we absolutely want you to feel that you can deal with your stuff. You're the decision maker. And instead of feeling driven by your stuff, you're the master of your stuff. And we're always trying to make that be the focus of what you're doing and allow you to be in that place. So thank you so much. It was a lovely comment and really appreciate it. And nice of you to catch on to what we're trying to do there. Thank you.
It really beautifully summed up what we're trying to do and the central importance of your autonomy. It's they're your decisions. We're here to support you. We're here to help you find your way to you.
Right. And being the master of your life instead of the victim of your stuff. I think that's super important to remember, that you are the master of what's happening in your life, and it's not about the stuff gets to take over or win or prevent you from having a life. And so that's what we're really trying to focus on. I'm going to end today with one last one.
This was our number one answer, by
This
the
is
way.
our number one answer, is it?
You might have guessed.
Right? Thin the herd. This is my most favorite saying, and I've been saying it for so long, but I just recently realized how very Texan it is. The original meaning is to reduce the size of a herd by culling the weaker animals. And the meaning has evolved into an idiomatic one, meaning to cull or to reduce the size of a group. And it works in so many ways and places in my discussions about handling clutter. But I think it suits me personally because it adds a Texas flavor to how I talk about decluttering. I can't believe it took me so long to realize that that's what it was. Anyway, it was one of my favorites. Thank you for picking it. I really appreciate it. I really was so amazed by how long the list was. We skipped over all kinds of them. We didn't even remotely cover it all. So it was a great list, and we will refer to it often. Thank you. It was very helpful. And clearly you guys are listening and paying attention and gathering nuggets of things that help you stay focused and work on your project. So we're super proud of you. Thank you.
I think at least a few people were trying to coin their own new ones, which is really cool.
Right.
I wanted just a shout out to Amelia, because Amelia sent us a very long list. She said that she's come up with several phrases she says to herself to keep moving forward, and she calls her approach catchy phrase cleaning. Which I guess you could even tighten that up and make it catchphrase cleaning.
Right.
And I'll just give one example. She said, focus for 15.
Right. Yeah. Focusing on something for 15 minutes.
And she says, mainly for decluttering, don't think about anything else but the task at hand. This is the hardest for me because my mind wants to think of the next thing to do or the things that need doing that I am not doing at the moment.
Yeah. So, and that was a good one.
So thank you to Amelia for her long list and just all the great suggestions we got. Let's talk about next week.
Okay.
We will be back next week, Tuesday, November 21st at the usual time, noon US Central, live in Zoom and streaming on Facebook. Again, we're going to a viewer listener suggestion. Susan Marie suggested the topic of hitting the reset button for yourself and your space in 2024. I haven't come up with the title yet, but watch your email for an announcement of that.
It's just now, it's a perfect time to start planning how we're going to launch into 2024 and get organized month. So we're going to talk about it a little bit and help you guys start thinking about it and have it be mulling in the back of your mind until it's, time to jump into it in January.
Well, and if you're a person who likes New Year's resolutions, the time to make your New Year's resolutions is not December 31st. You'll have more success and more luck making your resolutions stick if you've given them a little thought first. So we're going to talk about resolutions and managing without resolutions and all sorts of things in that vein.
Right.
Why don't you give us the tittle?
Okay, this week's tittle is called Shake It Up. This week's assignment is to pry loose an area of your home that's been stuck in a rut for a while, and which is why Ed told his story. Identify a space in your home that doesn't quite work for you in its present arrangement. This could be a work surface, a display area, a catch-all piece of furniture, any space that isn't fulfilling its mission as well as you'd like. Reflect on the purpose or the function that you intend for this space to serve. Make note of the primary, secondary, and any lower level objectives that you'd like this space to help you accomplish. Remove everything from the area. Take advantage of this moment to clear the landscape, do any necessary dusting and cleaning while you've got it all empty. Now's the time. Relocate anything that clearly doesn't belong here to another part of your house or flag it for donation, gifting, or disposal. collect anything that logically deserves to be in the space that's been stored or displayed elsewhere in your home. So this is why you've got the objective about the area. You have things that are already there that go with the objectives, but you may have other things in the house, in another place in the house, that should be where this objective is. And so you want to try to merge all that stuff together. Arrange everything that belongs here back into the space. And if it won't all fit, consult your objectives as you make choices to eliminate items for storage elsewhere or for disposal. And now live with and use the revised space for a few days or weeks and notice what works better, whether anything is worse, and what could still use improvement, and then make edits as you need to do as you use it and live with it. And then come back and tell us how it went, because we really want to know.
We do.
If you had a burst of creativity after you shuffled something around.
Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through the website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
And you know what? I'm going to throw up one other sign, because if you're watching in Facebook, or if you watch the replay in Facebook, occasionally people don't realize that you can actually go to YouTube, cfhou.com/YouTube, to see all the videos that we've ever done. They're all posted up there. And so this will take you straight to our channel, and you can see anything that we've ever talked about. It's all there for the viewing again. So check it out if you haven't ever been out to YouTube before. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you for all of the great Clutter Fairy-isms that you threw back at me. It was wonderful to read them, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.